Welcome to Bleeding Blue, this show brought to you by The Unrealistic Fan. It's your host, Matthew Lyle. How is everyone doing? Thank you for joining me. For those who may not know, my name is Matthew Lyle. I run a show, or I'm going to start a podcast called Bleeding Blue. I also run a sports page called The Unrealistic Fan. I might not be as unrealistic as I had previously imagined. It tends, now that I am starting to really get a feel for some of our fan base, or at least some of the fan base that is on social media, I realize I might be one of the more realistic fans. But I still like to have a little fun. I still like to think moments of what if. I still like to be very optimistic. I try to look at things very realistic, but also in an unrealistic way. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, it's okay. Don't worry about it too much. On today's show, what we're going to talk about is we're going to look at the season so far. We're going to talk a little South Carolina, a little Arkansas game over the weekend. Look forward to the Georgia game tomorrow night, or tonight, I guess. I'm recording this in the evening. This will be released Tuesday morning, January 21st. So we'll talk about it as if it's the same day, and you'll be hearing this on the same day of the game. But I'll digress on that. So coming off a tough week. Maybe not a tough week. I mean, there's definitely teams out there that had tougher. We went 1-1. Let one slip away down in, I guess, Columbia is where they're at, in South Carolina. Thought we had that one. We came out of the gate blazing hot. Well, I wouldn't even say blazing hot. Blazing hot on defense. I felt that they didn't score for the first several minutes. They only scored 25 points in the first half. Shot really poorly. I thought that was going to be more indicative of what the game we was going to see, but in the second half, they came out swinging. It really caught me off guard. I think it caught the team off guard. I'm trying to think who the announcers was. Maybe Jay Bill. No, it was on SEC Network. So I'm trying to think who the announcer was on it. Either way, one of the announcers made the remark that Frank Martin, South Carolina head coach, had hoped, or I had thought this was going to be a really good shooting team, a really high-scoring team, and it just hadn't really panned out. Well, in the second half of that game, it panned out. It just showed up. I think they scored 56 points, ended up beating us on a buzzer beater, giving us our fourth loss of the season, adding on to what some would call the third bad loss we've had, adding to Evansville, Utah, Ohio State, and now, of course, South Carolina. I'm not too devastated by this. I mean, we do have 4 losses, but I don't feel like we've been beat. And what I say about we've been beat, we've been outplayed, we've been outscored, but we haven't been beat. At no game this season, win or lose, did I watch and say, yeah, we can't do this. We're not good enough. We don't have what they have. There was signs last year, and I don't know how it would have played out, but there was times last year versus Duke, specifically, even Tennessee a little bit, where I was like, yeah, we're going to have to bring an A game, and when we didn't, it resulted in a loss. Maybe the Auburn game the third time, but we had beat them so bad the second time. This year, I haven't seen that. Evansville came in, played the game of their life. We sleptwalk, I guess that's the best way to word it. We sleptwalk for about the entire game until the last 2 minutes, and we was like, oh, we came back from that 4 o'clock break, and we said, could lose, did lose, but we actually had a chance to tie it, just missed the shot. Same goes for Utah. Led the entire time, and man, did they shoot lights out. But they led the entire time. We just weren't able to get it going. Got it going. We got a little run going late. Ran out of time. I hate to use the saying, we didn't lose, we just ran out of time. But it's kind of what happened. Ohio State was probably one of the more convincing losses that we experienced. But I felt we played really good. And if you want to consider us getting beat that one, I will allow that. I'm not 100% sold that they are better than us, especially after dropping 5 in a row. But on that game, on that day, yeah, you could make that argument. But I think they've gone the opposite direction. They've gone downhill. They've plummeted. We've kind of gone in an upward direction for the most part overall. South Carolina, we had a lead. led by, I don't even want to attempt to, double digits, I know that much. And then they chipped away. We let our guard down. They chipped away. That place got loud. And even then, it took a crazy buzzer beater to beat us. I'm okay with all of these things. Now, does it stink hearing some of our fan base bash our team? Absolutely. Does it stink hearing Kentucky haters, Louisville fans, Duke fans, any other non-Kentucky fan laugh at us? It does. But if it wasn't for that, I can't say that I'm too upset right now. I sit back and I say, no, I'm no more upset than I would be by a win that we have where we probably should have lost, where we played pretty ridiculous. Now, as far as I'll put it like this. As far as the fans go, thrilled to death with the Louisville game. Thought a little in the second half. I thought we got a little lackadaisical, and we didn't really come out of it until overtime. Thankfully, they couldn't hit free throws. So, until March gets here and when it's win or go home, as far as the regular season goes, I just sit back and observe. And if we lose a game, but we play pretty good overall, and it takes a wild shot to beat us, or it takes a player you've never heard of going nuts, I'm okay with that. Not thrilled, of course, but I'm okay with it. If we play a team that we absolutely should beat, and we sleepwalk, and we don't get and we do end up winning because they're the incompetent team, I'm less okay with that. I would actually go as far to say, I've tried not to be fly by the seat of my pants with this, try not to be in the moment, but I thought we played at spurts better versus South Carolina as a team than we did versus Missouri. Missouri was just at home. Missouri didn't play as physical as South Carolina. And Missouri, we had the luxury of Nick Richards going bananas. But as far as the team, and Quickly to have a good game. But Quickly had a good game against South Carolina. I kind of liked what I saw against South Carolina up until the flaky moments where we started them chip away at the leads. Because they'd come in spurts, and then we would come rushing back. So we lost that one. Fast forward to Saturday's game. We're playing Arkansas. I believe we get ahead early. That game, I forget the first half existed. Because the first half went by really fast. It felt very back and forth, even though I think we maintained a lead for the most part of it. And then in the second half, you had a lot, and it slowed down, and even come to a screeching halt down the stretch. So, let's talk about the obvious part of that, Calipari getting ejected. I'm going to go on probably the least most obvious take. Yes, he got ejected on purpose. Yes, he wanted thrown out of that game. Now, did he want to be thrown out of that game? So, I don't know if he walked up to that ref. I don't know. I'm not ready to convince myself that he walked up to that ref with the intentions of being thrown out, with the intentions of saying something derogatory or offensive or cross the line. But I thought I felt that he had enough of what he was seeing. He was not going to stand for that any longer. He then walked up to the ref, started just giving it to him. And if we've ever went off on somebody, I've had my moments. If you ever go off on somebody, you ever just had a moment where you break, sometimes you break. It's almost like breaking the trap on your mouth, like breaking your jaw, but in the opposite way of, when you break your jaw, you're not able to talk. Breaking your jaw in the way that you're not able to stop talking, to stop ranting, to stop just saying whatever's on your mind. I felt like when Cal started voicing his displeasure, the ref was kind of giving him, talk to the back of my head, talk to the side of my face. I'm not listening. I'm doing my job. And then that annoyed Cal. You ever been getting in a fight with your spouse or significant other or somebody you're close to, and they're just not entertaining your nonsense? Don't that just push you over the edge? Well, that's what happened here. I think the ref wasn't entertaining Cal's shenanigans, and Cal kept going. Then once Cal got that first tech, I think that's when, quote-unquote, the jaw broke. when he realized, I'm going for broke. I'm going for it all. We're going in. I'm yelling, screaming, whatever he ended up saying. And I think at that point the team knew. I think the fans knew. I think his assistants coaches knew. Everybody was like, hey, where are they at? Why aren't they holding him back? They were getting ready to coach. They knew what was up. And I do think once his jaw broke, I say that jokingly, once that straw broke, once he started going down that path, I think he realized that's how you get this team fired up. You look around that stadium, there was not a lot of blue. That might have been the one game where even on a good showing, once we get the lead, once it's kind of out of the other team's grasp, you'll hear our fans start chanting "Go Big Blue." I don't think that ever occurred. I don't think we had enough in there to even once Arkansas started leaving, once they started to leave the arena, I don't think the chants ever broke out. I don't think there was ever the "Go Big Blue." And that's impressive on Arkansas, not allowing Kentucky fans to buy it up on the secondary market, not allowing us to infiltrate them. They were ready. So sometimes you get a young team. There was no number in front of Arkansas. I always say that. I always say these are the tough games because they're too good for us just to roll the basketball out and win. But the team's not ranked. The team's not, even though they were 14-2, they didn't have a number next to their name. It wasn't prime time. The fans did heckle the players a little bit, but that's all in fun. So I don't know if there was anything that was enough to grab this entire team's attention for the full 40 minutes. So I believe Cal then saw an opportunity. Let's see what happens. He does this. What, has he been thrown out 3 times at South Carolina, and I thought he was going to get thrown out on Tuesday night or Wednesday night against South Carolina? That has nothing to do with South Carolina. That has nothing to do with a particular fan in the stands. That has nothing to do with South Carolina doesn't provide their own refs. It's just that's a South Carolina team, Frank Martin, tough environment. You got to get your team's attention. Happens here. Arkansas, great environment, solid team, playing good, playing physical, playing in a way that they wanted to for a little bit, and the refs weren't letting us play our way. I'm not blaming the refs. I'm not saying that the refs did anything wrong. I do think they have been very inconsistent, but I'm not going to blame the refs on any loss of any team or win, because every team has a chance to redeem themselves. You show me a team that shoots 80% from the field, 100% from free throws, no turnovers, and loses, I'll show you a team. And then you can give me something that the refs did, then we'll play that game. But anyway, yes, so he gets thrown out, gets team, and his team responds very well. And I hear a lot of people say, well, once the real coach got in there, once the coach started playing zone, once they started playing all these ways, I'm not buying that either. I think you could have played 4-on-5. You could have cherry-picked and had Nick Richards down or E.J. Montgomery or any of these players. You could have had them down on the other end. And I think these guys were so motivated, they could have made it work. That man-to-man, zone, 2-3 zone, 1-3-1 zone, 3-2, don't matter the zone. I think they were so motivated because we are the more talented team. Every position, we are more talented. I don't care. So yes, the zone happened to work. They had some open shots. It was just which if you make those, then you're not going to praise the zone as much because the game might be a different outcome. But I think you could have played man. You could have played any defense you wanted. And those guys were so laser focused that now they're the better team again. So before we start wanting to replace Cal with Kenny Payne and the awesome zone, yes, I do believe that zone does work sometimes. But that's not what Cal's going to do. Cal's going to coach these guys how it's going to work in the NBA. Cal wants to coach these guys, switch everything. Not going to happen with the zone. But I digress. I think, so yes, Cal would have still, or even if Cal hadn't got thrown out, if they could have got their attention, or even if Cal got thrown out and Kenny Payne plays man-to-man, I think you're still going to see a dominant level of defense. Now, maybe they did play a little more alert and a little looser, knowing that they had a little longer leash, that maybe Kenny Payne wasn't going to yank them out the game as quick. I feel like Kenny Payne might have a better relationship with the players than Cal does. Not saying that Cal doesn't have a good relationship with the players. Cal's there to be a father figure. He's there to be a teacher figure. He's there to be a mentor. Kenny Payne, as the assistant coach, gets to kind of be the grandparent. He kind of gets to be the substitute teacher. So I do think he has a little bit better of a rapport and sense like that, where guys know what they can get away with. But all parts of being the assistant coach. When we come back on Bleeding Blue, about called it something else. When we come back on Bleeding Blue, we're going to look forward to the Georgia game. We're going to talk a little more basketball. And we might even touch a little bit on football. We'll be back. Bleeding Blue. Welcome back to Bleeding Blue. Your host, Matthew Lyle. We returned second segment. On the first segment, we recapped a little bit of what's been going on this Kentucky basketball season. On this segment, we're going to look forward and see what's ahead, try to take the temperature of the team. We're going to start with tonight's game versus Georgia. Man, it seems like we just played Georgia the other day. Actually, we did 2 weeks ago. Went down to Georgia. They came out hot. And then celebrated their championship at halftime, and Kentucky came back and got a win. Thought Maxey played great. Thought Hagans played really well, considering I believe that was the game that everyone thought he was going to be injured, and they were questionable on could he play. Ends up getting the win. Georgia comes back, this time to Rupp Arena. I'm afraid to get my hopes up. I don't think we're going to lose. I'll start with that. I don't think that they're going to beat us. If they couldn't beat us in Athens, if they couldn't beat us in that environment, if they couldn't beat us with Anthony Edwards playing out of his mind, I don't think they're going to beat us at Rupp Arena. I don't buy that right now. That's not a stock I'm willing to buy. I don't even think Anthony Edwards will play as good. I think the fans remember him first off, so the fans remember him not coming to Kentucky. I think that's definitely one thing that we can be a bit sour grapes on. I think the fans definitely do recall him picking Georgia over us. I mean, obviously he did it. They can see it. But I think they remember how close he was to coming to Kentucky. A lot of experts or a lot of people would have considered him coming to Kentucky at least at some point during his recruitment. So he did leave a bad taste in some of the fans' mouth. Whether that's right or wrong, that's not my decision to make. So then we go down and play him. He plays really great, or at least a very strong first half. Celebrates, talks a little smack. I think calls quickly little after he kind of pushed off on him. Should have been a foul. Calls him little. I don't know what else he done. You could definitely tell he was doing a little talking back and forth. I believe it with Hagans. I mean, both those kids are from Georgia, and they're only a year apart, so I'm sure they have some history of playing against each other. So fans definitely remember or don't have a very good like for this guy right now. I would say this might be the biggest distaste we've had for a freshman that didn't pick Kentucky and also didn't go to Duke. I mean, we definitely don't. A lot of fans don't like Duke. A lot of fans didn't like Zion. But I feel like of all the guys who pick smaller schools and then go there and they kind of struggle, I think Kentucky fans tend to be okay with that because the teams do struggle. Anyway, Anthony Edwards, I expect him to be heckled roundly when he comes to Rupp Arena. I expect the fans to let him hear it. Now, does that mean someone else won't step up? No, I think they're going to play. I think somebody's going. It's Rupp Arena. It's Kentucky versus an SEC foe at Rupp Arena. Somebody is going to step up to the moment and make something happen. Now, who will that be? I don't know, but I don't think it will matter because we're coming back. We're at home. We had that little mini road trip. We got Ashton Hagans is playing. He does turn the ball over a little bit here lately, especially, and it scares me. And his free throw shooting has went down, but I feel like he's the leader of the team. This 3-guard lineup with Maxey and Quickly is some of the best basketball we play. Nick Richards continues to find his groove, even when he's not doing it all the time. He's making clutch shots. He's running big plays through him. Kentucky's running big plays through him. We saw Keon Brooks have some plays. He still looks a little awkward. He still looks like he's not used to what he still doesn't know what to do with his hands, I guess you could say. He just doesn't look like he knows how to fit in. Juzang looks like he wants to find a rhythm, but doesn't want to get pulled. So he kind of reminds me of somebody who he tries really hard on defense, and he has improved, I will say. He's still not exactly no Hagans 2.0, but I feel like he's improved. You could definitely see him trying. But on offense, he passes up some open shots. He looks a little hesitant. And I truly think it's because he's so happy to finally get some playing time. He's so happy to finally get the ball get in the rhythm that he's afraid to lose that rhythm. So unless he's wide open on a shot, unless he has that three-pointer where he's just got the most beautiful vision of it, I don't think he's taking it. But we're still not getting anything out of Montgomery. But I think with those four, and if you can give us two more guys, I think we'll be fine. Now, one thing I don't want is I hope Cal still plays 9 guys. We have 9 guys that can play. I don't want Cal to lose sight of the depth because in that, drawing a blank on the game, maybe Georgia? I'm drawing a blank on what game it was, so forgive me on that. But Cal played all 3 guards, Hagans, Quickly, and Maxey, almost the entire second half. And I believe that game, Hagans got a 10-second delay because he was literally dragging across half court. That's our best lineup, those 3 guards. But I think there's ways that you don't get trapped in. And Nick Richards is really developed, but I still don't think he's in the world's greatest shape. We got to find a way. So in crunch time, we have those 3 guys. We have Nick Richards. We have the 5th guy, whoever's playing the best. But I think that this team is so inconsistent, and I think I truly believe eventually, Whitney will find his way, and Whitney will be in that rotation with Montgomery, Brooks, and all the Sestina, where good game, bad game, mediocre game, horrible game, and you just keep rotating that until you find a 5th and 6th guy who gives you a good game. I think if Cal gets stubborn and falls on 7 guys, I fear that could lead to an early March exit. And by early, I mean Sweet 16, Elite 8. I don't think we're going to get upset by anything crazy. But I really think this team has what it takes when playing on all cylinders, when this team has what it takes to win a championship. Final Four, championship. I think this team has that. They just have to get in that rhythm. And the 4 can do it. The 3 guards and Nick Richards. Cal has to keep finding a way to find that 5th man. So I hope he plays all. What I would do if I was Cal, and I'm not. Cal knows more about football or has forgotten about more about football than I will ever know. Or basketball. Look at me. He definitely a better coach than me. I can't even get the sport straight. What I would do if I was Cal, strictly when it came to rotation, I would start the lineup. I'm okay. Hagan's got to be out there. He's your leader. I'm okay with starting Maxey. Young freshman, confidence out this world, needs to mature a little bit with his decision-making, not in a bad way, just plays like he has ADHD. Because you notice when the game gets big, his focus gets locked in. When the game's got a lot of time left, or when we got any kind of lead, he just kind of frolics around and comes running in like a wrecking ball and just throw the ball at the basket. I'm okay with letting him get the starting nod so he can find a rhythm. I'm okay with still starting Khalil Whitney. I know a lot of people aren't fans of Whitney and what he's done, but the man's a beast athlete, and he's going to break out. Now, is he ever going to be a good shooter? Probably not this season, but I would still start him, even if you just play him 2 or 3 minutes, play him to the first commercial break, even if that, and see what you're going to get. At least by starting him, you're showing him, hey, I still believe. I'm still buying into what you're giving. And I think that's, to some of these kids, that's more important than anything else you can do. And I know a lot of these people say, well, he should come back next year, and maybe he will, maybe he won't. But these kids aren't used to people giving up on them. So Cal would be, I think it'd be a bad look for Cal to give, not for Cal. Cal can do what he wants. He's a great coach. But I think it would be a bad feel for Whitney, and don't be surprised if that leaves him bolting in some manner, whether it's to go to the G League, whether it's to go overseas, whether it's to go to, if he feels like you're giving up on him. Because a lot of these guys haven't experienced that. And when you deal with the one and done land, you have to kind of mess with these egos. Not in a bad way. Not in the, hey, I'm the best player ever. But hey, I've not really struggled because I'm 6'9" and I'm better than everyone in my state. So I'm okay, still going with Whitney. Montgomery still gets that nod because I think he's lazy. I think he's lazy at times, but he still has upside. If he can break into it, hopefully by March, fingers crossed, I need him at the 4, and of course Nick Richards at the 5. So I would play that lineup. And then quickly the first person off the bench, he's so consistent. He's so at peace and one with himself and his confidence that he's fine. That's fine bringing him off the bench. Actually, I prefer it, much like in the NBA, you see a sixth man come off the bench and light things up. Kind of gets the ball rolling. For that second crew, you don't want your starters in there lighting things up, and then you go to your bench and you get zero production, and now you find yourself in a hole or in struggling to find any kind of rotation. So I'm great with quickly coming off the bench, and I'm great with him coming in early. I think Cal should go to that 3 guard early the moment he decides not to go with Whitney or Montgomery, whichever he takes out first. And then Sestina, I think that's the kind of leadership you need in. Put in Sestina next. Let him see what he's got. Let him play a little defense. Let him see if he can stretch the floor. Let's see if some threes are falling. And then throughout the first half, slowly sprinkle in Brooks and Juzang. And I'm okay with that final 3 minutes of the first half, letting all those guys off the bench play. What I would like to do is I'd like to go Maxey, Quickly, Juzang, Brooks, and you probably need a big on there, so Montgomery or Richards. Just that final 3 minutes, if they pick up any stupid fouls, then you're still fine because, you can just set up in the second half. A lot of teams like to go on offensive runs, so I would like to see you be okay with Sestina getting a shot if he's in there, with Juzang trying to get a shot, with Brooks trying to find his offensive game. And yes, it may not be the most productive 4 minutes, but I feel like it's 4 quality minutes for guys who are looking for quality minutes. You're getting guys like Hagens a break. You can get Quickly a break in there. You can get Richards a break. You can get your guys that are really going to rely on down the stretch. You get them a nice break. If you go into halftime and you flittered away a lead, or you go into halftime and that 4 minutes was very lackluster because you did have your bottom 4 or 5 players in there, it's okay because you have halftime to rectify the situation. Now, if you're down horrible, I maybe wouldn't suggest it. But any other time, I would like to see that. I think it gets those guys motivated. It gives them quality minutes to find a rotation. And if things get a little out of control, if things get a little wacky, you got halftime to steer the ship right. It's a great time to turn it around. And then in the second half, you can go to a 7-man rotation. What I would do is at halftime, if I was Cal, I would look and say, okay, you 2 guys are giving me nothing. Enjoy your spot at the bench. I gave you a try. I gave you at least 4 minutes of playing time. I've seen what you got. And this has nothing to do, before anybody says, oh, participation trophy mindset. No, this isn't about letting everybody play. This is everybody on that roster can play. You got to find out who it's going to be today. And I would hate for, Johnny Juzang, just using him for example, I would hate for Johnny Juzang to have a bad game on Tuesday, and because of that, him not get to touch the ball at all on Saturday, when really that might be his day. You never know, because, yes, the top 3 players on this team are obvious, and then you have a little bit of gap, and then you have Nick Richards, and you have quite a big gap, and I think you have everybody else. You're going to need to fill out what that spot is. So come out second half, you 2, the bottom 8, 9 player, you stunk. You didn't do anything for me. Find your spot on the bench. For the first half of the second half, you play the 7. whatever seven's left. The starting five and Juzang and Brooks or Sestina. And then you know you're going to get something good out of Hagans if he can stay out of foul trouble. You know you're going to get Maxey's best effort. You know you're going to get consistency with Quickly. And you know that you need Richards. So in the final 5, 6, 7 minutes, you can whittle that down. And then you can look and say, okay, I can make the best decision that these are the best 5 out here for me. I think sometimes, I defend Cal, and I will defend him a lot in this show. I'll defend him a lot on future shows. One thing I wished he would do is in crunch time, I wished he wouldn't get so tight with that lineup. Because that lineup gets 5 men deep. You remember back to that Auburn game, once he took, I want to say, was it Baker? Once he took Baker out in that Auburn game in the Elite Eight, he stuck with that 5. And I believe that 5 was Hagans, Hero, Johnson, Washington, and Richard, or Travis. Because I remember looking over there, and you could see Richards and Montgomery were still in their warm-ups that game. And I know they weren't playing like or at least Richards wasn't playing like he is now, but you didn't give him a shot at all. So, obviously, Cal knows way more than I ever will about basketball. That's just what I would like to see with the rotation. I think you start doing that, it starts giving everybody a little bit of shine. And it's not about, hey, this guy gets to play, this guy gets this. It's about, you've got 4 and 5 star recruits on this. You got Johnny Juzang, who would start in probably 80% of the other teams in this country, in this, or at least definitely Division I. You have Brooks, who would probably start on 85% of the teams in the country, maybe even 90, even out as the year looks. And so they have some talent. They have something. I just don't want to give up on that too early, because this could be one of those types of marches where you get everything from the big 4, your 3 guards and Richards, and then every game you kind of get saved by someone else. It was kind of like 2014. We went on that run to the championship game, and we had Aaron Harrison do his thing. You had Julius Randle being a monster. But every game, another guy stepped up. Well, I remember one game, Dakari Johnson played really good. You had the game against Michigan when Marcus Lee played out of his mind. The way you know if that's possible is you keep the players engaged. You keep their attention. You keep hope in them. And I could see Whitney giving us 12 points, 8 rebounds, 4 blocks, a couple big free throws, and a nice Sweet 16 win. I could see Johnny Juzang going 4 for 5 from 3-point line in a second-round game against a pesky, mid-level team. I could see Keon Brooks going nuts on the Final Four stage, which I believe is in Atlanta. It'd be even better if it's from Indiana, even though Cal doesn't have the best of luck playing in players' home states. But I could just see those things happening, in addition to our great players, the consistent players we have being consistent. So we're going to take our last break on Bleeding Blue. Your host, Matthew Lyle. When we come back, not sure what we'll talk about. Talk a little football, recap, season's over, another great season, and I will call it a great season, another great season for Mark Stoops. We'll talk about something when we get back on Bleeding Blue. Welcome back to Bleeding Blue, the show about Kentucky sports. It's your host, Matthew Lyle. We return for the 3rd segment of the show. If you're just joining us, this is the first episode, January 21st. We recapped Kentucky basketball. We talked Kentucky, Georgia. I even told you about what the lineup should look like. Now we're bringing it back. We're going in a different direction. We're going to talk Kentucky football. That's right, Kentucky football school, ? We're getting there. We're definitely getting there. I would say this year is very impressive. Mark Stoops coming in, all the hype in the world for Kentucky fans. We didn't get the respect from the national media, but we won 10 games. We brought back our quarterback. We brought back some seniors. All the hype in the world. We're getting ready. We start 2-0. We're 1-0, on our way to 2-0. Our quarterback hurts his leg. Season injured, out. Got this kid, Sawyer. Gets to come in. Guy plays lights out. Those 2 touchdowns versus Eastern Michigan. Comes in versus Florida. Plays out of his mind in the first half. Throws an interception. Hurts his wrist. We end up giving up the lead. Losing. Drop to 2-1. Then we drop the next 2 games. Mississippi State, South Carolina. Before getting back on the right path versus Arkansas. Losing in a downpour versus Georgia. And then going down the stretch, and I believe finishing 4-1. Does that sound right? Vanderbilt, Missouri, 5-1. 5-1 sounds right. So yeah, the year to me, big success. Considering a couple things, no one knew what we were really going to get this year. Our quarterback goes down. So coming into the season, I thought we could win 10 games again. I thought 10 games again would be a possibility. We lose our quarterback, and now I'm thinking 6, 7, maybe 8. At halftime of the Florida game, I'm back on the 9-10 bandwagon. When he starts playing bad, I'm hoping for a bowl game. And I think considering we had a lot of concerns coming in for that secondary play, who's going to be able to stop the pass? And I know we didn't play the greatest of quarterbacks, and when we did play the likes of Jake Fromm or the offense of Louisville, the weather was horrible, and it really benefited us. But the way we just didn't give up, we didn't lay down, we should have won the Florida game. I don't know what to put the blame on that. That's so long ago. Let's let that one go. We probably should have played better versus Mississippi State. And I truly think had we found a way to beat Florida, we beat Mississippi State. I think that's the kind of game where it's a hangover game because you lose. You let Florida beat you twice. South Carolina, that loss was happening. And a lot of people say if we play Lynn Bowden the whole game, we win. Maybe we do. I just didn't feel like we did anything really right against South Carolina. And they wanted that win. I think that was, if they would have lost that, it would have been 6 straight. Muschamp probably gets fired. They probably don't go on to beat Georgia. It changes their season. And I don't really think it makes that big of a difference on ours. I think that loss was going to happen either way. Of course, we beat Arkansas. We then lose to Georgia, which I don't think anybody anticipated to win or expected to win, especially once we had to go with Lynn Bowden at quarterback, just because he, even though as great as he was, he became very one-dimensional. It made us very one-dimensional. We then get a dominant win versus Missouri. Lose to Tennessee on a game that they did not beat us. We just ran out of time and we ran out of real estate. We lost, yes, but they had really one good drive, and we just kind of made some bad plays down the stretch. And when you're still trying to adjust, and when you're still trying to hit that, shake that dimensionalness, however you'd call it, being one-dimensional. When you're trying to shake that and break that, you can't make the mistakes we made. Vanderbilt, we looked horrible the first quarter, and then from the second quarter of Vanderbilt, all the way through UT Martin, all the way through Louisville, and into Virginia Tech, our offense was unstoppable. Was it one-dimensional? Yes. But it is about as entertaining as a one-dimensional offense could become. Lynn Bowden played amazing. Broke records in partial season. I got to give this season an A-. The only reason I'm not giving it anything higher is because we let the Tennessee game slip away. And we are better than Tennessee. We are better than Tennessee. We should not have even been in that situation. We were up, I want to say 13-0. We controlled the crap out of the time possession. We controlled every inch of the yardage. Should not have lost that game. Only reason I'm not giving it an A+. Maybe the Florida game did have a little impact too. I'm curious though, and maybe you start playing with this, you get the butterfly effect, maybe Lynn Bowden gets hurt, maybe who knows what happens. But I'm curious to know what happens if Lynn Bowden comes in, let's say when Sawyer Smith hurts his wrist the injury is a little more serious. And I don't want to wish injury on anybody, and I hope Sawyer Smith is healthy, and I hope whatever he decides to do is great. But let's just say that something happened where Lynn Bowden had to come in then. I truly think we hold on to the Florida game. Because the turning point was a 4th and 1. I think Lynn Bowden, even on that short of notice, I think Lynn Bowden gets that done. Lynn Bowden gets it done. We beat Florida. Our problem against Mississippi State was we could not complete a pass. With Lynn Bowden, you don't really have to worry about completing a pass. So Lynn Bowden comes in. A.J. Rose was running all over him. We just got ourselves in some bad situations with a pick 6. Think we ended up hurting ourselves. Maybe we missed the field goal. Maybe I can't remember if we missed the field goal going to halftime. But we got in a fight, and the guy got I think it was Stenberg. He got their best defender thrown out, but he also cost us field position. I just things like that. If Lynn Bowden's there, it's a little simpler. One thing I think Lynn Bowden's offense did was, I think Mark Stoops has done a great job here. But Mark Stoops, every once in a while, and maybe you have to do this when you're a defensive-minded coach, when you're coaching a university like Kentucky where you don't get a lot of breaks going your way, you can't get too cute with it or you will end up out of a job. One thing that Lynn Bowden did was it took Coach Stoops' more conservative style of play when he has a lead, when we would be up by 7 or 10 points. Coach Stoops loves to reach out to his offensive coordinator and say, keep it on the ground, keep it safe. Lynn Bowden was so electrifying that even keeping it safe could be a 50-yard run. Keeping it safe could result in a touchdown. And I think that would have been a difference. I think we run the ball, we get a lead, we beat Mississippi State, we start 4-0. I still think we lose to South Carolina. I just think they were playing with a different edge. We beat Arkansas, and I think we actually beat Arkansas by a lot because by that point, Lynn Bowden has 4 games under his belt playing quarterback. Eddie Grant has done scrapped what doesn't work, starts focusing more on what does work, because it was about the 4th game at quarterback that Lynn Bowden started really clicking and making these big runs, started realizing, okay, he can't make this throw, he should do this, he's really good if we do this in the backfield. It was about the 4th game in. So I think that would have been a great time. Arkansas would have been about that time. I think he runs all over Arkansas. I think you still lose the Georgia game, but maybe you lose it 14-7. Maybe you lose it 21-7. Maybe you get on the board. Still don't think you win it. Still think that defense was too tough. They had Swift. They had their own version of the ground and pound in that horrible weather. You move on. You beat Missouri. I think you beat Tennessee because I think you're still learning, because by that point, we knew what Lynn Bowden was. That's 6 games in. That's 7 games in. At Tennessee, I think we're fine. I think we obliterate Vanderbilt. I think everything happens as we did. Now, the only place you get a little different is now in this hypothetical situation, you went 10-2, which is amazing, and you get a tougher opponent in the bowl. Now, how would that have panned out? I don't know. You probably end up playing a Baylor. Which that would have been interesting, because I don't know. Well, that defense was decent, but I don't know how they would have done against Lynn Bowden. End up playing a more top tier team, a Michigan, which then you also run into that those teams like to bench their NFL players. Kentucky, we're not to that point. A lot of the NFL guys we have still have a chip on their shoulder, and they feel that they owe that fieriness to us, and they tend to give us their bowl game. Josh Allen, Benny Snell, Lynn Bowden. Maybe when we're competing for national championships and we get your everyday run-of-the-mill 5-star guys and we start making some mediocre bows, you might see some guys sit out. But so far we haven't had that. So I don't know. I think there was a clear path. There was a good path for us to go 10-2 even with what happened, because of, I guess you could also say, what happened around the rest of the SEC. Do we win 11 games if everything I said happens and we play in Michigan? We go back to a Citrus Bowl? Maybe go to whatever bowl Florida played in. I'm drawing a blank on that one. Well, that would have been something I would have liked. I think that's your chance to 11 wins in this scenario that I win or that I created. Is that we go to the bowl that Florida had, because we would have beat them and that would have given an extra loss, so we could have swapped with them. We go to the bowl that Florida went to. We play a Virginia team, part of a down ACC, and we beat them because that Virginia Tech game was really good too. So I like that. I want that to happen. That's what I want to happen. That's how I wanted that 11 wins to occur. I know we got 8. I'm still satisfied with that. That's 18 wins in 2 years. That's 7, 14, 24, 32 wins in 4 years. We're on to something. What I think needs to happen is that, so I've said this. This is kind of the thing. I'm not the only person to say this. This is kind of my developing thought. Mark Stoops had to get here and show that he could compete. And he did that. If you look, and I would actually like to position an interesting thought, but if you look, Mark Stoops could have won 9 or 10 games his second season here. To go from 2-10, he could have won 9 games, at least 8. We lost a triple overtime game to Florida. We lost a close one to Louisville. We lost a close one to Mississippi State. We lost a close one to Missouri. I believe that one, I think it was 20-10, but still close. He had us competitive year 2 and 3. Year 1 even, we played a ranked South Carolina team, and that was the year before we started the 5 straight. They beat us, I want to say 45-38. It was still a close one. So the first 3 years, he had us competitive. Then the third year, he started to recruit a little, started to get some guys. Not all of them panned out. Drew Barker, Matt Elam didn't quite become what we wanted them to be, but he still had us there. By year 4 and 5, he had us in bowl games. He had us consistently winning games. And I would say, outside of that first year, there's only been about 2 games a season for those next few years where you would say, okay, we didn't stand a chance. Typically, there for a couple years was Tennessee and Georgia. Mississippi State a year there really blew us out. Alabama blew us out 1 year. And Louisville and Lamar really handed it to us the year after we upset them. But, so Mark Stoops did a great job of keeping us relevant. He did a great job of keeping people talking about Kentucky. And then I said that last year and this year was very important. It's one thing to say, hey, come start at Kentucky, come be my starting running back, or be Ohio State's 3rd running back, or be Alabama's 4th running back, or even Florida or Tennessee's 2nd running back. It's one thing to say that. It's another thing to say, hey, come start for me. I think he was able to do that. Him and Vince Merrill was able to say, hey, you go to that other school and you could sit on the bench, or you come here and start. Then these last 2 years, I feel like he was getting to a spot where he had to say, come sit on the bench at Kentucky, come redshirt at Kentucky, or go redshirt at Bama, Ohio State, Auburn. And that's a tougher sell. Because if you're going to sit on the bench, if you're going to ride the pine, you at least want a shot at a national title. Gunnar Hoke. I mean, a lot of people, the talk died down once Justin Fields took that job, but he was 1 game away from a national championship. Let's not forget that. But it became a tougher sell, and I thought these 2 seasons were very important for Stoops to say we have a different culture here. Something bigger is brewing here. All he had to do was keep these classes together. The next 2 years, next year we get Georgia at home, rebuilding. We do have Florida and Auburn on the road. Next 2 years, I say we need to be like last year, the 10-win season. But we need to be in the SEC hunt. Will I be disappointed if we're not? No. Because every year has its own twists and turns. Will I want Coach Stoops fired if we don't? No. Every year is a different story. I'll take it year by year. But if we want to get to what Clemson did, let's not forget, and you could say Clemson has a different history, and Clemson has had better coaches definitely over the span of the last 15 years. But in 2006, we played them in the bowl game. We played them in 2 bowl games in the span of, I think, 4 years. We dipped down to the land of 2 wins. They've won 2 national championships. So in order for us to get there, I think over the next 2 years, we have to compete for the East. And I don't know where 2022 will be. That's so long away. And with the way kids transfer and the way coaches leave and the way coaches get fired and with injuries, you can never count on one thing or the other. But 2022 looks like there's no Bama. Our SEC, we have the SEC East. we have no Bama, we have a Mississippi State, and we have Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin could get them on the right page. He could be fired by then. Who knows? But I'm just saying, next 2 years, get us 10 wins. 2022, 2023, 2024. Hopefully Stoops still here, recruiting at a high level. That's when I'm willing to let myself believe national champion type tier, playoff type tier. And one thing that'll also help us, if they expand the playoffs. 8 teams. Because what was it? Last year, 2 years ago, we were 12th. Maybe even 9th at one point. You start doing that opportunity to get to that top 8 seed changes. So I love where our football team's going. I enjoy Eddie Gran. I think he does a really good job. I think he's underrated. I think people look at results and they don't look at the nuances of offense, especially when you're limited, especially when you got a head coach that does not want you to make a mistake. But I enjoy Mark Stoops being here. I'm so glad he's here. I enjoy where their program's going. But that will be it for January 21st episode of Bleeding Blue. This has been your host, Matthew Lyle. I am out. Thanks for tuning in. Later. You know, man.